Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of the RPGwhat Podcast. I'm your host, Zimmy Games, aka also Trevor. No, I'm Trevor, aka Zimmy Games. That's how that works. And here with me today is my fantastic co-host, Red Wolf. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, I'm happy to be here. Glad to be back. We took a little break, a little sabbatical, whatever.
Yes, we did.
Took a little break, and I'm happy to be back here with you, man. It's good to see you. Yeah, let's do this thing. Let's talk
Let's do
about
it.
these things.
Let's do it. Yeah. So, number one topic, actually. So on Monday, Red, I was really lazy, so I never even posted a poll. So we don't have a poll, but that's okay.
Nice. Okay.
That's okay. So, start off with the very first topic. Is Starfield Now Xbox's most important game this year? So here recently, a small game called Redfall dropped, and it has not resonated with the fans, I guess, the way that people hoped for. I haven't personally played it, but the reviews are really, shaky. And there's been a lot of criticism towards Xbox about this game, just to say it very, very lightly. But looking forward this year, really, we know that Starfield is coming out. Is Forza coming out for Xbox?
You mean, is it
I'm not
Forza
sure.
Motorsport?
Yeah.
Oh no, I wish Assassin was here. I don't know. I'm not gonna act like I know.
Even if it was, Forza's not the type of, it's not, the type of game that's really going to just drive a ton of talk for the Xbox brand, right?
Right.
A game that would potentially is Starfield, right? And so that's really where this topic kind of goes into is, is Starfield now Xbox's most important game? Which I kind of want to say yes. But more importantly, than that, and this question goes out to the chat, and it also goes out to you as well, Red. With all this negative press that's happened here recently for the Xbox, brand, does it add even more pressure onto Starfield? And does this pressure potentially make, some fans maybe have unrealistically high expectations for this game's success?
Yeah. I've said it before that Starfield is the new flagship AK or Starship title for Xbox. And this was all but confirmed whenever we saw the Xbox, the picture of the Xbox Series X packaging box with no longer had Halo or anything like that on it, or just the default stock. It had Starfield on it. And so I think that they have been banking on this for a very long time, and they want it to come out great, hence the almost year delay that it got. To make sure that 60 frames. That's not facts, people. I'm just saying that's what I believe. 60 frames was a big deal.
It might be facts. We'll come back to that.
Oh,
okay.
Look at me go.
We'll talk about it here in a second.
Cool. But yeah. So I just feel like now, and everyone's like, what about Starfield now? What if I keep seeing people say if Starfield flops? I'm like, I don't want to go on a tangent, and when I say that I do, but I promise I'm not. We know what Bethesda does. This is BGS. We know the Bethesda template. If you liked Fallout and any Elder Scrolls game, and you love them and you're passionate about them, you're going to love Starfield. And if you don't, it's maybe space stuff isn't your thing. That's the only thing because we know what we're going to get. So I don't think Starfield's going to flop, but there is a lot of weight on Starfield now, and not much longer to wait for it. So, yeah, the pressure is on, and I think it's good because I'm hoping this is the last shot, like Eminem said, or somebody said that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I definitely think that Starfield is not going to miss, right? I think it's going to hit, and it's going to hit really, really hard. And I'm not going to lie. Am I a little biased? Yeah. I mean, I absolutely love Bethesda Game Studios. They're my favorite studio of all time. But with that being said, I have loved every single Bethesda Game Studio title that's came out since Morrowind, right? And the only reason I say that is because Elder Scrolls Redfall or Redguard was a thing, and I don't quite remember when that one came out, but I think it came out after Daggerfall.
It was in the 90s.
So, yeah. So I mean, I do think that it is not going to miss. I think it's going to come out and it's going to reassure people that this is the same Bethesda game studios that it was whenever they launched Elder Scrolls Skyrim, Oblivion, Fallout 3, and Fallout 4, right? And I think a big reason why a lot of people are very hesitant right now is that, well, first off, this is a new franchise for Bethesda Game Studios. But then there's also the whole Fallout 76 controversy that happened, which, is fair criticisms to make. It was a different, team at Bethesda, but it's still, a fair criticism to make. Andrew in the chat, thank you so much for showing up today. And he says, if Starfield isn't amazing, it will literally destroy my faith in video games, and I might need to take a break until the next Rockstar game. Yeah, you know what? I agree 100%. If Starfield isn't amazing, I'm going to cry, eat like 3 tubs of Ben & Jerry's, and just go to sleep for a month is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to write a very stern letter to both Todd Howard and Phil Spencer telling them how I really feel.
Yeah.
Mac is in the chat as well. Welcome, Mac. And then, of course, Red Wolf is in the chat too. And he's here.
I'm here. Yeah, baby.
So
I'm going to shout out to Andrew. I'm going to start calling Starfield Stanfield now. Andrew, thank you so much for being here, man. And he says that Disney Plus just put out a kids Jedi show today, and my kids like Star Wars. Very proud. You should be very proud. That's awesome, dude. Is it the Jedi Temple show from when we were kids? Is that what that is? Maybe remember that show?
I don't. I really don't.
It was. Let's not get off topic.
I am good. Well, yeah. No, I am going to check it out. I don't know if today, because I've been watching 1899 on Netflix, I think. So probably not today, but later on this week, I am going to turn on Disney Plus, and I will definitely probably check it out. Nice. But back to Starfield. So the reason I say maybe 60 frames is because Phil Spencer did, I think, an interview today with the people over at Kind of Funny, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was with them. And the host, I have no idea what his name was, asked Phil Spencer, like, basically the question of, will we know the 30
Harris?
Well, will we know that? Okay, his name is Harris. Okay, well,
is it not? I don't know if it's Paris Lily. I know it's Paris. Here, I got it right here. Because shout out to my panelist Assassin. He's like always on top. Paris name drops Perfect Dark, Everwild, Fable, State of Decay 3, Contraband, Hellblade 2. Was this what you're talking about?
I think so. Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. So the host basically asked Phil the question of, a lot of people are wanting to know if 60 frames is going to be like the new standard. And, when the Xbox showcase happens and we see Starfield, will we get the answer of 30 frames or 60 frames? To which Phil only replies with one word, and that is yes. Now, I know that he's saying yes to the question of will we know 30 to 60 frames, but I just feel like it's really kind of weird that Phil would just say yes and nothing else unless it was 60 frames per second, right? I mean, if it was 30 and he just says yes and that's all, I think that opens him up to just a controversy and, even more criticism if the game is 30 frames per second with him just saying yes. So
right.
For that, I just really think that, Starfield is going to be 60 frames per second. It might be with a performance mode, right? It might be at 1440p 60 frames. And if you want the whole 4K experience, you'll be playing at 30. But I do think at the very minimum that there will be some form of an option for 60 frames per second with Starfield, but we won't know until this June.
Right. That and man, that's like even more pressure. Like either Phil was like 100%. I've seen it like in his head. I've seen it. I know for a fact it's going to be running at a 60 frames, whether it's performance mode or not. And then now, if it's not 100% happening, he's like, "Shit, I shouldn't have said that." Now I'm kicking myself, and now people are going to come back, and this is going to bite me in the ass when it's not running at a solid locked 60. Because look at a Jedi Survivor. Now, you know me, everyone knows I like to play because I'm a videographer, I'm a film guy. It's a whole thing. I prefer 30 frames depending on the type of game that it is. So third person games I typically play at a lower frame rate with a higher quality. I like the visuals more, and the frame rate doesn't bother me because film usually runs at 24.9. But performance mode in Jedi Survivor, from what I understand, the quality is like out the window for a lot of people, and it dips. It dips a lot. So whenever you have a much higher frame rate, the dips are much more noticeable. And I think that's something that people are going to latch right onto if the performance mode isn't locked for the most part for Starfield. So we'll have to see, but I hope it is. People do deserve the options with next gen consoles. Yeah.
No, I mean, and when we all went out and bought our Xbox, Series X's, right, and Series S's, we had the expectation that 60 frames per second was going to kind of become the new standard, right? And we also kind of understood that maybe sometimes the only way that we would get that is with a performance mode, right? But I do think it's really important that they do hopefully hit that mark of 60 frames per second, which I think that they will. But I would also say, even if they didn't, I would still play the game, right? Like, I wouldn't let 30 frames stop me from playing a Bethesda game studio game that I'm really, really excited for. That's not what would potentially really harm the game for me. What would personally really harm it for me is if they put in like heavy multiplayer mechanics, which I don't think that they're going to necessarily do.
Like Mass Effect 3, like like a Mass Effect 3 where it's like save the universe with the resources, like weird stuff like that, or do you mean like actual?
No, I mean like
actual
co-op. I mean like
yeah,
co-op.
don't do that. No.
Yeah.
Please God.
Now, I mean,
Please
if they added some social elements, kind of like what they did with Mass Effect, like from like, I mean that, like, I guess I could probably do that. I wouldn't want to see them do like a PvP mode, or like a co-op mode where like you're fighting against hordes of enemies or something. I just think that would be so out of place with Starfield. You know what I mean?
Gross.
It just Bethesda as a general, it would just give me some nasty, icky Fallout 76 vibes, and
we're not having that.
We just need to forget like that game ever happened. That's really what we should all do collectively as a group. But do you have any more thoughts about Starfield? We know that it's obviously going to be at the June showcase. There was a time, like the official times were released by Xbox, and I'm not gonna. Well, it's 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 for Pacific, which we've actually already covered just based on a leak from a previous episode. But do you have any more thoughts?
Yeah, I sort of echo everything you said about like it's nothing is stopping me from Starfield. Starfield is literally my dream game. Like I'm working on, shout out to Optimus who was on our show Tuesday, this past Tuesday, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Renegade, wherever the hell I am, whoever I am. And him and I both have a backlog, and it's like the backlog isn't specifically just like I just need to get it out of the way. I want it gone because I want to not think about any game at all because it's all about Starfield. But I do have this weird separate list. It's just called I just call it the legacy list, and it's a bunch of amazing games that I don't want to fly through. That's not part of my backlog. So this includes Dead Space, Resident Evil 4, Hogwarts Legacy, the big, huge games that I'm not just playing to beat. So what we talked about, that living in games, being immersed, that kind of thing. So yeah, I just want it to be good. I want everyone to be happy. I want it to have a performance mode. I want it to have a quality mode. That way, I just want everyone to have everything, which is a lot to ask. But hey, they're boasting a lot with Creation Engine 2 and how much they've poured into the game. So we'll have to see. I could go on and on about Starfield. So get us out of here.
Yeah, well, I hope it has all of that and more, and it's Bethesda Game Studios. So I am setting a high bar, but I think I'm setting a fair bar. You know what I mean? I'm not putting it so high where they're never going to be able to achieve it, but I am putting a high bar just because I know what the studio is capable of, and I expect it from them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Speaking of Hogwarts Legacy, I'm glad that you mentioned that as a game that's kind of somewhat in your backlog, but you don't want to. You want to make sure that you have enough time to play it and so on and so forth. Hogwarts Legacy releases tomorrow on May 5th for Xbox One and PS4. So if you haven't had a chance to get it because you're not currently attached to the current generation, the new generation of consoles, you guys are all going to be able to play Hogwarts Legacy and enjoy that game starting tomorrow, May 5th.
Welcome, flick and swish.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, like that game's already sold 12 million units. I'm really excited to see how many more units get pushed out. Because it's now coming to the last gen hardware where more players are actually on. You know what I mean? So I'm really interested to see what the sales numbers looks like. And it also, just a call back from previous, if anyone is actually interested in what that Star Wars show is called, Andrew posted it in. It's called Young Jedi or something. It's all new. So Young Jedi, hopefully that gives you a tip on how to find it if you're interested in that show. Topic number 2, a new Fable leak. Now, I have actually covered this in a video that I posted to replace last Thursday's show because we were unable to do it. But basically, I just still wanted to cover it today because it's really, really cool news. And I think it really gives us a good idea of what to kind of expect from Fable here in the coming weeks and hopefully next year as well. So what happened is a man by the name of Simon Kent, who is a quality assurance technician at Playground Games, posted on his LinkedIn that he was currently managing the flighting or the flight tests of the new Fable game. Now, the reason that this is so interesting is that the flighting of a game happens kind of towards the end of the game's development. And it's just a great indication that we could potentially see this game within the next 12 months launch. I mean, and if we think back to Halo, right? They did a flight test with the expectations of launching later on in that year. Now, I don't think that we're going to see Fable launch this year. I actually think that we're probably going to see it launch 2024. Now, all of this goes under the idea that their flight tests go good and that the play testers they don't encounter any absolutely just awful game-breaking bugs. And that, of course, the game is fun. So long as those things ring true, then, the flight testing is all going to go, great and so on and so forth. But what the interesting part about this is that this is a very good indicator that this game very much could launch in 2024. And not only that, but I would actually go as far to say that if they're flight testing the game right now, then they have probably enough gameplay to show us gameplay during this June's during the Xbox showcase that's happening this June. So just by this leak of the flight testing, we can kind of predict that there's a fairly good chance that we will see gameplay at this June's Xbox showcase and to get a expected release window sometime in 2024. Chat, how do you guys feel about this? Same goes for you, Red. How do you feel about it? What do you think? Do you think I'm on point with this? Do you think I've gone crazy and that we won't see gameplay and we won't see the game drop until later on?
Well, yes, you're crazy, but it's not because of this.
Yeah.
But for other reasons. But it's while you were talking, I was thinking, I was like, man, wouldn't it be great? The idea that the reason that we haven't seen anything from or heard anything about Fable, other than just a couple of leaks here and there over the past few years, is just that they wanted to have a different approach to it, and this sort of is the approach that I talk. Just to preface what I'm talking about, can't remember the guy's name. Oh my god. A guy came out on stage and he said, I don't want. I've seen Playground's Fable. They'll show it whenever it's ready. I can't wait for you to see it. You remember what I'm talking about? Something happened. I feel like I'm talking out of my ass. I know what I'm talking about, but
I have no idea what you're talking about. But I like it. Keep talking
it's
about
good. Yeah. So a man came up on stage, and if somebody in chat help me out, there was a guy.
A
I can't believe
man.
I'm forgetting.
There's a man in a stage, and
Yeah, man
he
in a
came
stage
out
with a
and
microphone.
he was talking about Fable somewhere.
Yes.
And
yeah.
do we know what country this occurred in?
I think it was the UK. I think because they couldn't go too far out of the playground.
Well, okay.
But yeah. So anyway, he came out and said that
Matt Booty said that.
It was Matt Booty. There we
Church
go.
says.
And I'm like, some guy. It was Matt Booty. That's what I was afraid of. It wasn't just some guy. I'm an idiot.
Why would Matt Booty even be talking about it?
I don't know.
Oh, never mind.
He's a big old booty. He keeps swinging it around. But yeah, so he was very adamant that the team was just not ready and that they're happy with what they have or whatever. If that's to be believed, then I think that their approach, what they're trying to go for, is just keeping their heads low until they really have something to show and have a release window that they want to aim for. Because if there's flighting already, like you said, that's like right around the corner. That is like next year. Like, because even with Halo Infinite, that was just a couple months out from release. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, and you know, I mean, of course, you know, for Halo, they ended up delaying the game because, you know, it was a public flight test, right? And there was a lot of criticism from fans, right? And it just needed more time in the oven. So long as that doesn't ring true for this, you know, just more private flight test, right? Yeah, I mean, it's just a great indicator of a 2024 release date, and that we will see gameplay. And how I was actually watching one of Mr. Boomstick's shows earlier today, and I dropped a super chat and I said, "Mark my words, we will see Fable gameplay during the Xbox showcase." Like, everyone called me stupid. So, but
I've been saying it too. Yeah, I'm with you.
But
yeah,
imagine,
they have to,
right? I mean, imagine like how, you know, like Xbox has had kind of a rough, let's say half a month or so, you know, with the CMA stuff, which we're not going to jump into. This isn't that podcast. And with Redfall's drop and you know, Minecraft Legends, it didn't really review super high. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily an absolutely god-awful game at the same time. But, you know, they've kind of had like a rough little track, right? And this is leading straight into, you know, summertime. So imagine just sitting there watching the Xbox showcase, and all of a sudden you get to see Fable, but you're not getting a cinematic trailer. You're actually getting gameplay. How excited would you be?
Dude, I feel like that's what we're gonna get, honestly. And I'm not like even like I'm not going to be disappointed. I just feel like that is going to happen. I would be so over the moon. And the thing is, like, it's been so long since Fable,
since we've seen it, just in general.
Since we've seen it, exactly. And now, what I'm really curious about is the aesthetic in the art style of it, because before we sort of had this. We talked about Arcane with Redfall. Arcane has a very distinct art style that they have been doing for a very long time, and it's kind of similar in a weird way with Fable. The way that they have the it's just very artsy looking. Everything it's more
cartoony. It's not super realistic.
It's like painted almost. It's like everyone's got like this painted arch to their facial structure.
It's like a fairy tale book.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I guess you could say it's almost like a fable.
A fable. Wow, look at that. Full circle, baby. Yes. I love it. Yeah, that's what I'm really interested to see. Shout out to Timmy. What's up, man? Thank you for being here. I'm really interested to see what it looks like, because we heard about how it's like The Witcher. So does that mean that we're gonna have so have you ever played Kingdoms of Amalur?
I try not to think of it, but yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people say like that game does feel like you're playing Fable like 4, but it was released immediately after. Just as far as like the way that it looks, the way that everything sort of's got like this painted fantasy look to it, you know? Even though the game was created by like 57 studios and somehow. Anyway, I don't like.
It was initially MMO too, if I'm not mistaken. Like they planned it to
Yes.
be a massive online multiplayer game, and
Yep.
then they're like, "Yeah, this isn't really due for us. We'll keep all the environments, but we're actually just going to make it a single player game with like maybe one NPC here in this big open field."
Yeah, this giant forest with like 70,000-foot sequoia trees.
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah.
the game was
So
a mistake.
it was a mistake. Yeah, it was. And it's, by the way, it's on my backlog. So fuck. But yeah. So where the hell was I going with that? Yeah. So I would like. I hope it's not doesn't have that vibe to it. Like, because Fable does have it has a vibe to it. But we're in a different
Yeah,
time, and it like do they want to go so far as to introduce it to a new audience with the same aesthetic and the same like whimsical. I use the word whimsical because only when I think whimsical, it's Harry Potter and Fable. Those two things immediately pop into my head. It sort of
yeah,
got like this like we're being silly, but it's serious kind of. So whoa. I
yeah.
don't know. I personally, being a huge fan of The Witcher, like if it is to be compared to The Witcher, I would hope that it does have the silliness, but not like GTA level of like this should be so much more serious, but you're being so silly right now. But then what would it be? Would it still be Fable? I don't know. Either way,
The most important thing is that they get the tone of Fable correct, right? Through
yeah.
dialogue, through storytelling, through just funny interactions that you have in the world. You know what I mean? Like, just like going through a village and seeing a man who got kicked out of his house because he messed around with like the local brothel
The
kind of
bar,
thing. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just like the little like just quirky humorous moments that we've always kind of come to expect from a Fable game. It needs to have those, because without it, you're not hitting on the tone of what Fable actually is, right? You can modernize the gameplay and maybe make it a little bit smoother, make it more like The Witcher. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same point, I don't think it should have open world environments. I think it should have kind of like that semi open world, somewhat linear, but somewhat also like you're kind of free to explore kind of environments that pretty much all of the Fables have kind of had. But the really exciting point is that you know if we do see Fable gameplay during the June showcase, we are going to learn a lot about what this game actually is, right? Because so far it's just been speculations. Is it a Witcher game? Is it a Fable game? What exactly is this? But once we see the gameplay, we're really going to have a good, solid idea of what Playground Games is looking to do with this franchise, which I think
Right.
is
Yeah.
like the most exciting part.
Right. And I think just because I said this on my show this week actually, the reason that I have so much faith in Playground Studios is because whenever you put someone in front of a screen that is the exact same thing for years and years and years, sure,
Mhm.
in the beginning, in the first couple of years, they're going to be passionate about it. They're going to be excited about it, and they're always going to feel happy and proud of what they have done. Um, but the motivation, there's just no way. As human beings, we have to have change. The definition of insanity, that whole thing. Um, and we saw what happened with Horizon. Guerrilla Games is the one who did that, who did Killzone, a first-person shooter, linear first-person shooter, went and made an open-world third-person fantasy game, and it kicks ass from what I've heard, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. And so, like, you take a game where they're just making wheels and cars, and they're gonna make an open-world fantasy game. Yeah, they're gonna be excited. They're gonna put all their passion and everything into this, and they're not gonna show anything until it's ready, especially right now, because remember, we heard that Fable was actually supposed to be shown last year, and then the Game Awards, we thought that we were going to see something too, and we
Mhm.
heard that behind the scenes that a lot of things were actually pulled back because they'd just rather not show anything at all until everything is totally ready, which I think is smart. It's been almost 3 years, which is insane to think about. So
Well, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
so I heard rumors back in like 2018 that this game was like currently kind of like in the works. Obviously it was probably like super pre-development of the game and so on and so forth. And I'm not going to say exactly, what transpired on the podcast, but because I don't want to throw anyone underneath the bus, but I had a conversation. I asked a question to someone who worked at Playground Games. I'm not going to mention who, but I asked the question, "Hey, are you guys working on Fable?" Just like really quick, and just their facial expression told me everything that I needed to know. It was like fear, and it's horrible, right? But I knew at that moment, right then and there, that yes, they were working on a Fable game, at least to some extent, right? And that was back in 2018. So, it's definitely been in the works for a while. I don't know when they really put down some really solid work into the game. Obviously it wasn't in 2018, but they definitely have been working on this game to some point for quite some time. What you mentioned though with with your video game kind of like studio example, I from Avalanche, the people that made Hogwarts Legacy, and I'm pretty sure I've said this story on the show, and then also in private parties before as well. But Avalanche, the people that made Hogwarts Legacy, before they made Hogwarts Legacy, they worked on Cars 3, which is a Disney game, right? So they went from creating a racing game to creating Hogwarts Legacy. And Hogwarts Legacy is very reminiscent of kind of Fable in a way, right? And so just seeing Avalanche be able to do that gave me a lot more faith in what Playground would be able to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just to kind of add on to what you were saying with that as well. Church, she says, I'm pretty sure that Fable, at least I'm pretty sure that you're a she. If you're not, I apologize.
Canceled.
They. See, I should have used that one.
There you go.
See, that's why we created that pronoun. They said, I'm pretty sure that Fable reboot will have a whimsy akin to the original series, so that it will basically kind of follow that same tone, which hopefully it does.
Yeah. Look, and then Andrew says, I just ran through the entire through the Fable games last year. Have never played them. I was a bad character. I killed everyone. And Sonia confirms I am a she. Thank you for that.
I know. Yes.
Oh God.
I still know how to guess people's pronouns without actually ever meeting them and just reading what they say. That's a skill. That's a skill.
Thank you.
By the way, Andrew, I actually just recently beat through the first Fable game, like the anniversary collection again. And I did something that I really never did like full-fledged ever before. And that was play as just like a really evil character. I played as just, I had horns. It was fantastic. That's one thing I love about Fable is like, they really make you, like, if you play as an evil character, they really make you look evil. And if you play as a good character, they really make you just look like an angel.
Like you asked for it, like in
That's
like
right.
KOTOR, like your face is like cracked and everything. Well, Mass Effect as well, Mass Effect 2 specifically. Yeah, love that stuff. Yeah, you got like horns coming out of your asshole and shit in Fable. It's like it's fantastic. I love it.
Oh man! All right, are you ready for the next topic, Red?
I'm so ready.
All right, next topic. It was announced this week that the new DLC for Cyberpunk 2077, which is called Phantom Liberty, will be shown off during the Summer Games Fest happening this June. During this event, it was said that this will happen by CD Projekt Red, that there will be hands-on sessions for the press and content creators. So that means that press and content creators are going to be able to play, I guess, an early version of this DLC. CD Projekt Red also mentioned on Twitter that they quote that we're also planning plenty of hands-on opportunities for our community at a later date, so stay tuned. Meaning that at some point we just regular players will hopefully have the opportunity to maybe play test this or maybe get a demo of Phantom Liberty, which is really kind of interesting. So, I mean, this DLC must be pretty big if they're planning on doing some form of a beta or a playtest, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because maybe what we're seeing is a lot of things, a lot of assets features, animations, everything being brought back from things that were canceled, maybe.
Okay,
And
that's interesting.
I'm not talking about wall running. I know people really wanted that, but that would fundamentally break the design that they ended up with for the base game. So I don't think that that's going to be a thing. But we could see some stuff that maybe people thought that was going to happen. Like we know that we're going to see the car combat, right? So that's like a thing, right?
Okay,
That's a thing that they said a while back, and then Phantom Liberty gets announced, and they're like, oh, and everyone's excited about the DLC. Why not use that as a main, a main base for showcasing vehicle combat and stuff like that? But yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested in what's like the big draw other than the narrative for Cyberpunk. Like, you know me, I love Cyberpunk. I love it so much, even though in all my disappointment, I love it. I love it. Like it's one of my favorite games ever. I need to show you the steelbook for it that I have sometime. But I just want to know, like, what are they doing? Showing a single, having play tests for a single player game expansion. Like, what could be the draw? Like, except for the narrative, like they have a new Idris Elba's coming in, so that's cool. We know that he's there, right? We're not going to see third person. Anybody who wants that, we're not going to see it. That's all that I want, but we're not going to see it.
Probably not. Yeah.
I just, what are they? I don't know. I'm so like, now the more I think about it, the more I'm sort of like, I don't really know what I would want to. Like, what would you want to test? Like, if you're a developer and you really want people to go behind the scenes and test this and get hype for it, what would their vertical slice end with that would make you go, "Oh my god, I'm so excited about this, dude"? Other than the narrative, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm like I love Cyberpunk 2077. I know it was a buggy mess whenever it came out, but you know what? I took that as an opportunity to really just enjoy the glitches, just really just dive in and just enjoy the glitches. And there was actually a glitch where you could get like a painting that was worth like 4,000 currency and you could duplicate it. And I duplicated the hell out of that. Let me just tell you. And still to this day, I'm a very wealthy person in Cyberpunk.
Yep.
Look, man, I am really, really, really excited for this DLC. It's the only major DLC that we're going to get for this game. And so for me personally, I like to think that they really pulled all the stops with it, right? Because it's going to be the only thing that we're going to get. And with that being said, I think that just the fact that they're looking to offer plenty of hands-on opportunities for the community at a later date, as what they said, is it like an indicator that, hey, they're probably going to let us play test the game or possibly get a beta or something, which I think serves for two purposes. The first one, which I think is the most important one, is just a great marketing opportunity, a great public relations opportunity to let players get into the beta, create content about it. Everyone starts talking about it, posting on Twitter, so on and so forth, and build up some real hype for this DLC. Because they want this game to be as big as possible, right? And of course, whenever the game came out initially, a lot of people skipped on it. A lot of people did. And I think that this DLC might be their way of possibly getting some of those people that decided to skip out to maybe come back in, right? And so if you have like these big kind of hands-on opportunities for the community to jump into the game early and just try out certain things, then that is a great marketing opportunity. The second thing that really just kind of excites me about that is this DLC must be big enough to warrant a beta, right? Because how many times do you hear a beta getting, especially a beta for a single player game, getting like a hands-on opportunity, just getting a beta, right? How often do you hear of a DLC getting that?
That's like my whole point. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
That's why there has to be some sort of twist, or some sort of draw.
I just thought of something.
Yeah, go.
So a while ago, whenever Cyberpunk first launched, it was supposed to have multiplayer.
Ooh.
And then they canceled the multiplayer. But what if they decided to bring back the multiplayer, at least to some extent, for Phantom Liberty? You know, whether it be a PvP kind of mode or something like that. I mean, that would really explain why a hands-on opportunity is needed here.
Is it behind the scenes? Is it like a sign up, NDA, embargoed?
So
All
they
that?
don't mention that. So they did not mention that. What was said is that during the Summer Games Fest that's happening this June, they're going to be offering hands-on sessions for press and content creators. And then they mentioned on Twitter that they're also planning plenty of hands-on opportunities for our community at a later date. So stay tuned. So there's going to be like more like private hands-on, like people are going to get to play the game at a press event basically, and then at a later time they're going to let the community give it a try. Now I don't know if it's going to be like something that you have to register and sign up for. I don't know if it's going to be like an open beta. That information isn't given to us, but they told us to stay tuned, so there's that.
Yeah, I don't, man. Like, I just wish that Cyberpunk at the very least had like a Deus Ex style cover system or something. Just to like freshen it up, give it like a new vibe to it. See your character a lot more. Turn it. I know people are like, it's not a cover based shooter. Well, fuck you. I want it to be. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
I want Cyberpunk to be what I want.
Exactly. Damn it. No, the thing is, like, Cyberpunk was a third-person game. It was, and then they changed it because it was easier to develop, is what they said. So, whatever. I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited for the dark vibe. I love the tone of the story. I totally get the whole idea of it, like the government coming back and Mr. President and all that. It's really cool. But what is the I'm so confused that, like, what are we testing?
I know, like, right? It's
what
crazy.
Are we testing?
But it's kind of exciting though too. And here's the great part, right? We will get a really good idea once June comes around, right? Because if they're letting content players play it, content creators are going to be telling everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're gonna be breaking all kinds of NDAs and be like, "I'm a Twitter streamer."
That's why Todd Howard doesn't tell me things anymore. It's because I would just blab them out to everybody. I'm joking.
Exactly.
He's never told me anything, but yeah, no, it's sad, isn't it? I'm really thinking that this DLC is going to be bigger than really what almost any of us thought it was going to be, which is really exciting.
It's a new map, like it's a whole new area and everything, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a war-ridden, like fucked area. I mean, the whole world's fucked anyway in that game, but which is I did so much research on that's actually why I was a street kid in the game, was because I legitimately knew all the history, dude, for years. I mean, Starfield is essentially my Cyberpunk now, which is a sorry if you can hear that, but
no, I thought it was fine.
Yep, sorry about that. But Starfield essentially is now my Cyberpunk. I'm like, it can't go wrong, because I know what to expect. But Cyberpunk, I was so excited for it that I literally studied the lore. I studied the D&D, the original game, Cyberpunk 2020, which is why they released it. And like, I was like, 2020 is going to be the release date. I remember saying that to people for years because it's the board game, so that makes sense. I got so deep in the lore of that game, like I was like, Street Kid is definitely my thing, and I just I loved it for what it was. But ultimately, no third person killed it for me. But I don't know, like, if it's bigger than what we thought it was. Like, hey, let me just try to explain this, because I feel like I'm going around in circles. You have a game. It's a first-person open-world RPG. Okay.
Yes.
It's got shooting. It's got the choices. It's got driving.
Awesome romance scenes.
It's got great romance scenes.
I don't want to be that guy, but I kind of want to be that guy,
Yeah, you're like, hey, listen here, Meredith. Did you get the Meredith scene?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where she's
did you get the collectible after
Yep. Yep. And I was like, goodbye.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's like, me, don't bring anyone. I was like, oh fuck, this is gonna be this shit's about to go down. And you walk in, you're like, oh my God. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, so it's a first person RPG, shooting, driving, choices,
Yeah.
consequences, weapons, whatever the hell. What I'm trying to get at is like, what is so mind-blowing to warrant a playtest? And this DLC would be, because depending on what, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't played it, but depending on there's multiple endings, and some of them don't go very well, and some of them go amazing, but still,
Yeah.
like I don't know if like the perfect ending, if you get the perfect ending, which that's what I got.
Don't spoil it.
I'm not going to spoil it at all. No. And it just, some of the, like, when is this supposed to take place? Like, are you supposed to be, is this supposed to be like a continuation, or like, you know?
Yeah, I mean, well, so if you remember, so once you beat the game, right? If you decide that hey, I want to keep playing, you can, but it's going to take you right before you start the mission that basically ultimately will lead to you ending the game, right?
Yeah.
If you remember that, right? So from that point, you could you could do the DLC. Now it would be kind of annoying because if you remember towards the end of the game, you start getting a lot of like blurry, fuzzy vision and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which would kind of be annoying, but I would have, you know what I kind of hope for? I'm not even gonna lie. And like I've wanted this feature since day one of starting the game.
I know what you're gonna say.
What am I gonna say?
Get rid of Johnny Silverhand.
No, that's not what I'm gonna say.
New Game Plus. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. New Game Plus, right? And I think that would really kind of answer the question for a lot of people, right? Give New Game Plus, allow people to like start the game brand new, like just straight over again. And then just, I mean, obviously I would say that, whenever you reach level like 10 or something, then that DLC is going to open up for you or something, or once you reach a certain point in the story, then that DLC is going to open up for you, right? That's what I would imagine. Yeah, I think that's kind of like the only way it makes sense, unless they have you play as a brand new character, which would be kind of cool and kind of weird at the same time because you've kind of already grown so close to V, right?
Yeah, V is like the character, like that. He is like your Geralt. He's your Dragonborn. Oh, that maybe not that much, but you know what I mean. He's like, he's the, or she, whatever, or they. He's, they are. I can't imagine us playing as a new character. I guess it would have to take place after. I think what it is, it's like, obviously they had DLC in mind, right? So because DLC was in mind, they had to put, like, why can't I just beat the game and then come back and play after Nocturne? Nocturne being the mission that you get taken back to right before.
Yeah.
I think this is the reason. I think this is one of the reasons, like, you can always do Nocturne, you can always do the final mission, but that the DLC mission will always be available to you because it doesn't take place after the main story. So I think maybe I just answered my question from earlier. So it doesn't take place after. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because Nocturne is available, like, it will never not be, because you get reset to that point afterwards.
You do. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Well, and then also just because of the way that endings potentially happen or don't happen, it would just be really hard to do it after the game ends, right? But I think a good telltale sign of this as well is just kind of how Witcher 3 dealt with the DLC, right? Like none of it was like end game content necessarily, right? You could kind of jump into it, just mid game basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, it's this could be a Blood and Wine situation if it weren't for those endings. Because I don't know if there are endings quite, like, I'm being very vague, if there are endings quite like Cyberpunk in The Witcher that would have stopped Blood and Wine from happening altogether, because Blood and Wine is like the definitive end of the Witcher 3 and the trilogy as a whole.
Mm.
And it's meant to be that way, and it's amazing. It's not meant to be played in the middle of the game, you know what I mean? So
how cool would it be if Phantom Liberty was a new ending and it ends up being the quote unquote canon ending,
oh, okay, I see what you're doing
of the game, right? How cool would that be if the ending of the Phantom Liberty DLC is the actual ending of Cyberpunk 2077?
That would be dope. That would be dope.
That would be cool.
Where would it pick?
And then, I mean, what's the greatest part about that is that, it would be basically allowing the U.S. government to fix all of your problems, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just be like, you know what? I know what you're saying. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, and be like, I know you're busy right now, but don't worry about them. We'll take care of that. Just hop on over, and then like the building explodes, and you're like, okay, well, I'm on my way. That would be dope. That would be hilarious. Just driving away and just I don't want to say anymore. You know what I mean? But that would be amazing. That would be sick. And maybe they could because maybe this is such a big maybe, but maybe you do have to get to the point where you're about to start the final mission, Nocturne. And that's when the DLC becomes available.
When you can start the DLC, yeah.
And they're like, just so you know, this will change the end of your game. And you're like, yes, especially for people who have beaten it like 75 times already.
Yeah,
which I would love that. I would love
it would be great, wouldn't it?
That'd be so cool. Yeah, that would get me. But I mean, you still, again, playtest. We're waiting to playtest the end of the game.
Well, because it's so big. Because it's such a big DLC, man. It's such a big DLC. And they want to, I mean, I think really and truly, like Rod Ferguson once said, this isn't a marketing beta. This is a real beta.
It's real life.
This isn't a real beta. This is a marketing beta, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is what that is.
As a wise man named Rod Ferguson once said. And I think that makes a lot of sense why they want people to get hands-on is because I think it's going to be a really big DLC and they want as much media coverage as they can possibly squeeze out of this sucker.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is, like, they did this in the beginning. I mean, they did this. I remember seeing like all kinds of influencers getting up there and talking about how, and everyone said the shooting doesn't feel great, and boy, it still doesn't. But that's a whole other thing.
That bad. I mean, it's better than Fallout 4.
I don't know. I still I still struggle. Like I just fire from the hip all the time in Cyberpunk because it's.
We'll agree to disagree.
It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing, man. Like it's not great, but it's kind of like Redfall's. To be honest,
no, stop.
It's very stiff. It's very stiff. It's the acceleration isn't quite there. Look, I haven't played it in a long time, but anyway,
you need to go back and play it. Apparently,
I do need to go back. I miss it so much. Did I tell you what I was doing? I found a whole playlist, and what?
You know what I just thought of?
Yes. No.
So no, you did. Yeah, we played this game earlier. You didn't do very well.
I didn't do very well.
So one thing that The Witcher did that I actually really like, because I'm just an achievement whore, is they basically made a Game of the Year edition, right? And the Game of the Year edition was a separate SKU, which means that I could basically unlock all of the achievements again. Currently, Cyberpunk 2077, I'm 1,000 out of 1,000 achievement points. So I'm really hoping that shortly after they drop this DLC, they come out with a new version, like a Game of the Year, edition, or a gold edition or whatever. That's the new SKU that allows me to unlock all of the achievements again. Because the reason I love doing that is it feels like a new game. It feels like
all over again. So I don't want to get up. I don't want to get up. Usually I would if I was on my show. I knew I had like an hour and a half left. I waited Sorry, I saw some shadows outside my window.
Yeah.
I waited to get the complete edition of The Witcher 3 because I remember years ago, whenever it first came out, my friend said, "No, it's a totally different game." And he's like, "Go look at the achievements," because I have like all the achievements for The Witcher except for Death March, and I was like, not doing that. Love the game, not torturing myself though, but I did that. I'm over 500 hours in that game, and I'm gonna do it again. But I waited because at the time I was done with it. And then I waited again when I heard about the next gen upgrade, and I was like, "This is a perfect opportunity for me to get the complete edition." So I did. Bought a whole. I have like I have a steelbook addiction. I bought another steelbook. Gave my girlfriend the old one that I have, and it was perfect timing because I had no achievements in it whatsoever. I don't know if you've played the complete or just played the next gen upgrade of The Witcher. It's incredible.
I've dabbled in it.
It's incredible because the camera angle, it changed everything it changes everything. It is like, it feels like, because the camera was like way up high and like over your, like centered with your character, and it just felt weird. But I have 500 hours, obviously it didn't bother me that much, but now it looks like Skyrim or like a typical third person game. But I waited. So yeah, if they were to do that, release Cyberpunk with third person, no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that would be dope, just to have a whole new vibe to it. Do it all over again. I would totally play it again this would be the third time that I would go through the story because I beat it twice. So yeah,
I've beaten it 3 times.
hell yeah.
And I would beat it, I mean, all over again if I could unlock all the achievements again. Like, I'm seriously, I'm not lying. And you know what? I bet I would have such a better experience this time without any bugs.
Right. It's so funny, man. Like, I went through this like, did I tell you about what I did whenever I started playing?
Max calling you out, buddy.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, he says only twice, only.
Yeah, that's what I said, Mac. What the fuck are you talking about?
He's calling me out, man.
Yeah, I said I beat it twice. It's only twice. That's what I said. He's just confirming what I said in case anyone in chat didn't hear me. Twice, only twice. That's what I said. No, I love you, Mac. But yeah, no, whenever the next gen upgrade for Cyberpunk came out, again, I waited until I caught up on my backlog. And I realized, like, one of the weird issues that I had with it was, like, I love the music in Cyberpunk, but it wasn't like the retro synthwave Cyberpunk, Harrison Ford Cyberpunk that I was waiting for. So I spent a week making a playlist of very somber, melancholy retro synthwave ambient music. And so what I did is I put on my headphones, synced it up to my phone, turned off the game volume, turned off the game music volume, and played it. And it sounds so weird. Music is everything when it comes to, like, how it makes you feel, like what you're doing, how it makes you feel. So I replayed Cyberpunk, the next gen version, with all that music, and it just totally. I put like another 50 hours into it, just like every single day, and it, like, it just changed the whole vibe with that 80s sad, depressing synth. You know what I mean? Like, it was so good, dude. It was so good. So yeah,
did you play Mr. Mister? Take these broken wings. No,
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's a good.
I know Mr. Mister's a 80s. Yeah, but
yeah,
I can't tell you.
It was in Grand Theft. No, you've definitely heard it because you played Grand Theft Auto Vice City here recently.
Yeah, I did. Unfortunately,
heard it. It's like,
I beat all 3 of them, by the way.
These broken wings and learn to fly again. Learn to live so free.
I'll have to.
You're gonna have to listen to it after the show. Okay, I know. Yeah. As soon as you hear it, like the song opens like doom 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 doom. Yeah, you've definitely heard it 100%.
Max says need to do it like 5 more times. Zenny. Mac,
I might if they bring out achievements. I you know what? I guarantee you I would probably hit 5 playthroughs.
Mac and his voice to text.
Yep. Well, hey, look, this was a fantastic topic. I'm really looking forward. Like, my hype level is rising so much for Phantom Liberty. Like, I was already excited for it, but after this conversation, I'm even more excited for it. And I most certainly will take on this I will definitely take part of this hands-on opportunity that CD Projekt Red puts forward to me. So next topic and last topic. This is actually a really kind of interesting, kind of depressing topic. Let's just jump into it. So, an ex-Dragon Age Inquisition developer says that BioWare resented its writers. So, from a new article from PCGamesIn.com, ex-BioWare developer David Geider, I believe is how you say his last name. Geider. I want to say Geider. Anyway, he discussed his feelings towards the end of working with BioWare. So, for those that don't know, David Geider was a video game writer and narrative designer with a long history of working on some of the best Western RPGs. These include Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter, KOTOR, which is a personal fan favorite from Red Wolf, all of the Dragon Age titles, and Anthem. So according to David Geider, BioWare turned into a company that resented its writers. Quote, even BioWare, which built its success and reputation on good stories and characters, slowly turned from a company that vocally valued its writers to one where we were quietly resented with a reliance on expensive narrative seen as an albatross holding the company back, Geider says. He continues, maybe that sounds like a heavy charge, but it's what I distinctly felt up until I left in 2016. Suddenly, anyone in charge was asking, quote, how do we have less writing? So this is obviously from something that happened kind of a long time ago. You know, if we remember when Anthem kind of dropped, and of course Dragon Age Inquisition dropped, and you know, that game had quite a few bugs and just kind of issues. I think it's still reviewed pretty high. Of course, Anthem did not, and eventually David Geider did leave BioWare.
Keep talking.
Keep talking. Well, I was actually going to end it and go to you, but you know, this like I was saying, is just, you know, something that happened a long time ago, and for a completely different EA. But you know, in some ways, we have been seeing what appears to be some troubles with the upcoming Dragon Age game, right? And right now, EA and BioWare, you know, particularly, really needs to show us that they are still the BioWare of old, right? They are still able to create those amazing narratives that we grew to love from the Dragon Age series and from the Mass Effect series, right? And I mean, really and truly, the main question I have here is, has BioWare made the shift from maybe resenting its writers if what David Geider said was true? And you know, have they come away from that and learned maybe a lesson from it?
Yeah.
I mean, Mass Effect Andromeda was also a game that I personally don't hate for its story, but that's one thing I do hear quite often, is that people did not like its story.
Andromeda?
You didn't hear anything I said, did you?
No, I heard everything that you said. No, what you said, you said that you didn't play a specific Inquisition? Listen, please say everything that you just said all over again. No, I'm kidding. No, I heard everything, but the very last part, you said that you didn't partake.
So basically,
in
we have David Geider here, right? And he used to work at BioWare. He used to work on a ton of BioWare IP, right? Was a huge part of the narrative design and the writing of some of BioWare's best games, right?
Yeah, I heard all that.
We're talking KOTOR, we're talking all of the Dragon Age games, and we're also talking Anthem, which we like to forget about, right? But he ended up leaving, and one of the things that he felt was that writers were being resented, right? And at one point, he quotes someone working at BioWare saying, how do we have less writing, right? So this is obviously, this happened at EA back in the day. Now we know that EA has made big strides in improving itself as a company, right? But BioWare still has a lot to show, right? They have a lot to show with Mass Effect, which Geider never worked on, but they do have a lot to show as far as Mass Effect goes, and for the upcoming Dragon Age 4 Dreadwolf game. And so my question is, do you think that maybe EA has learned from this, if this indeed was an issue? And, do you have any concern possibly over the narrative of BioWare's future games?
First of all, I heard everything you said. Other than the very last bit, I didn't know which game I didn't know which game you were referring to when you said that. You said, I heard the story wasn't that great. I didn't personally partake in it. And I said, Andromeda? But to answer your question, yes, I think that maybe what EA was looking at was, how do we have less rating, more fun, more engagement, more money? You know what I mean?
How do we put more microtransactions and less of the silly dialogue in our games?
Yes, less this, more this, yeah, for audio listeners, I just made a... I don't know how to describe it.
Check us out on YouTube.
Check us out on YouTube. I think that's probably what it was like, people aren't buying this is back in people aren't playing single player games anymore. We need less writing, we need more action engagement.
Yeah.
More repetition that actually matters to a player, more monetization. I think inherently that's sort of what it boils down to. So I feel like, back then that was something that they were being discouraged to do. And then hence we saw less story. With like Anthem was like the biggest, like, what the fuck. So I don't know if you know this, but Anthem, the name of the game was a code name. It was just called Anthem. That was just the code name. And because, I guess now this does make sense, because of EA's stance on single player narrative and whatnot, they just said, just come up with something, we don't care. And so then they built the code name. They built the story around the code name, the Anthem of the Galaxy, the call of the whatever the fuck it was. This is true. You can look this up. So that actually does make sense in the time frame of when they're saying less rating, and they're like, oh, well, fuck it then. All right. Well, what do you want us to do? Make a first-person hub too?
You know what I imagine whenever you say the story, which I've heard that story about Anthem. I imagine like some CEO or head up guy like at BioWare is like just looking at the writers like, it's really not that hard. We'll just call it Anthem.
Yeah.
like the CEO crafted the story. He's like, see, look, I can do it.
Yeah, look, not that hard. Paper. yeah, just clickety clacking it away, and they're like, "Sure, Jim or Bob or whatever."
This is
every bad guy's name is Jim.
Everyone's gonna love this game.
Yeah. Now and then like then there was like the tech, like the reason that the hub was first person was because they wanted to. There wasn't any engagement with the narrative if it was a third person. It was so weird. Like they're like, oh, but what about like we can't have you walking around in a suit because that wouldn't make sense. So now we got to build two different movement options, and like that game was all kinds of fucked. But Dragon Age Inquisition before that was sort of their last. I think Dragon Age Inquisition was great. I mean, I love all the Dragon Age games.
It did. Honestly, I think most of like the critique about that game was like just the bugs. That it had like at the very beginning. I mean, it wasn't as buggy as like Mass Effect Andromeda. But speaking of Mass Effect Andromeda, a lot of people's big complaints, right? For that game is mostly the bugs, right? Like, let's just be honest. But a surprising amount of people, like I've heard, didn't really care for the story very much, or some of the characters at the same point. And what David Geider here is kind of saying kind of makes sense as to why maybe that story didn't hit as well. I mean, of course, he did not personally work on Mass Effect, but the company, BioWare still, owned Mass Effect, worked on it, and so on and so forth. And kind of what Geider is talking about here isn't necessarily how, people were, kind of just attacking him personally, but as how like they were kind of attacking the writing and narrative designing aspect of the people that write games, right? Like the whole process, right? The art of it,
right?
And so, I was just gonna say, and so like if BioWare, was attacking riders, it would kind of make sense that that game, narratively speaking, would have been weaker because of that.
Right. Yeah, and I think now that we have seen like in comparison to that, now that we've seen things like Jedi Fallen Order was sort of like the big because remember Jedi Fallen Order almost got canceled. It was this close to being canceled. I can't remember the details of why it didn't. I think they just said, "Are you fucking stupid? It's Star Wars. It's lightsabers. Come on." And then they're like, "All right, whatever." And because they were trying to make it like multiplayer and all this, and they're like, "Stop this. We'll give you one chance." And it is a huge success. And now we got they leaned so fucking hard into Jedi Survivor. I'm like 15 hours in. I'm like about 15 hours in. Still on the second planet. No spoilers. And dude, you can tell they were like, "Fuck it, we're doing it." The game is 140 gigs. Woo, shit. So you can tell like a lot has changed since then. The narrative is there. Like they have gone full on. There is no like microtransaction things.
EA as a whole, right? But from Guider's perspective, this was a BioWare kind of issue. Right?
Okay, I see what you mean. I thought you meant like the restrictive, like the restrictive nature of EA on its studios. That's sort of what I thought that you were referring to, because that focus was the company as a whole was like money, because remember everyone was like the Bond villain, all they care about is money. The guy who looks like a Bond villain, I can't remember his name, but you know who I'm talking about. You'll know who I'm talking about when you see him. But yeah. So BioWare was definitely the one. And dude, I understand. I mean, as someone who is creative, like with music, and I'm on YouTube, and I've had other channels and stuff like that. It is very easy to be discouraged whenever you put your heart and soul into something, and someone's like, "Stop doing that," and you're like,
"Yeah,
I just don't want to do this anymore." Like it is really disheartening. Like, I don't think people understand who are not content creators understand how much work it is to do some of the things that some of these people do, and just that little bit of negativity can just crush you altogether. And so I'm glad to see that this has apparently changed. Dreadwolf, without going into spoilers. Dreadwolf, without going into spoilers, is heavily tied into Dragon Age Inquisition, narratively speaking. So I think that they just said, you know what, do your thing. They laid the groundwork with DLC. Again, no spoilers. So we'll see where it goes. And I'm just glad that they're loosening their death grip on everyone's throat. For because man, Jedi Survivor is so good, and I know that game has been in development for many years. But if that's anything to say about what's to come from EA and their studios, I think I'm so excited about. I think I'm more excited about Dreadwolf because it's BioWare, but because I don't have as much emotional stakes in it as I do Mass Effect 4, or whatever it's going to be called. But you know what I mean? I'm so scared.
I'm actually really excited for Dragon Age 4 just because of how I'm not going to go into any spoilers, but just how 3 ended, right? It ended in such a strong place that it's like it just got me pumped to see where the narrative is going in future games, right?
Big twist.
But I hate to say it, and I know that EA, just as a company in general, has really kind of went a very. They've kind of in some ways done a 360 as to what old EA was like versus new EA, and I think a big reason of that is the success that Respawn has showed them is possible whenever they just allow a game to just be a single player experience, right? But still, like there's a tiny little part of me that BioWare is still BioWare. I know that they're owned by EA, but what if like there's some of that ideology that's still there? How could that potentially negatively impact Dragon Age 4 or possibly, and God forbid, Mass Effect, right? And so there is that little bit of worry for me. Do you feel that worry, or are you like, no, EA has really turned around? It's not the same company that it was in 2016. BioWare is hopefully not the same that it was in 2016 as well. Things are better now.
The first thing that comes to my mind is something as successful as far as single player games go, and how those games have spoken for themselves in such a way, and were incredibly lucrative without any sort of just nasty pay to win monetization. It's just a single player game, so you know what I mean. But they've gotten so successful, even just leaning into a single player narrative, and that is the Resident Evil remakes, which have been incredible.
Okay.
I mean, they have been so incredible. And now we have finally hit Resident Evil 4, which is like the Resident Evil game for a lot of people, because that was a lot of people's entry point. Depending on how old you were, that was sort of like the Resident Evil game. They know they know that people are going to buy that game regardless. And now they've recently actually added in a ton of I won't say microtransactions, but they've added a lot of payable things into the game. Like you can skip ahead and buy the rocket launcher and stuff like that. Because they know their success is they can sort of
almost
what's the word I'm guaranteed.
trying
to use? Yeah, like it's almost guaranteed. So like, why not? What's another? People are going to spend another $2 or $3. Well, what if 100,000 people spend $2? You know what I mean? It's $200,000. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That is sort of something that I could see happening in the future with EA, when people go, okay, we gave you your single player games like you wanted, but we're gonna charge $5 for this Dragon Age armor in Mass Effect 4. Stuff like that. I just feel like that could be a thing, but it's the teasing with both games, Dragon Age 4 Dreadwolf, Dragon Age 4 Mass Effect 4, the teasing that they've done with the narrative of both of those games have been so like, please trust us, we know what we're doing, especially with the Mass Effect will continue, that kind of stuff. Like they know what they're doing, and then with the narrative carrying over from Inquisition to Dragon Age 4, they know what they're doing because they know that how the fans are going to respond, because it seems like it really sounds and feels like they're fans too. So as far as Dragon Age Dreadwolf goes narratively and Mass Effect 4 go narratively, I'm very optimistic, but there is like something deep down inside of me that is like, you could take liberties that could really screw over. The thing is, the legacy isn't quite nailed down as hard with Dragon Age, which is why I said before I'm much more excited about that game, as far as not being disappointed, because the legacy is sort of in the history that has been created over the course of Dragon Age Origins to all that. But with Mass Effect, it's tied to Shepard and everything, all the events that happened prior. So, as far as taking the company taking the we can get away with little bullshit here and there with microtransactions, or trying to. I don't know. I don't think that we're going to see. I mentioned earlier the Mass Effect 3. It's a single player game, but then they added the multiplayer element with. Remember, you couldn't save the galaxy. You couldn't get the best ending if you didn't have the multiplayer aspect, like that kind of stuff. Yeah. And you could actually pay to like get the best ending in the game, essentially. So I've said so much. That's how I feel about everything.
Yeah, I mean, I want to feel like that things have been fixed. At BioWare, that things just like they appear to be fixed, just kind of EA as a whole. But kind of like what you were saying, like there's always like that small part of me that that's kind of like deep inside that's like, maybe it's not fixed. Maybe they are still going to have some of the remnants of kind of what screwed them over the previous times, still in in their studio to mess up, this game potentially. Even so much so, like whenever you're like, well, the promotional stuff so far has looked really, really good. It's the first thing I thought of whenever you said that. Well, Halo 5's promotional stuff looked really good too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude.
And that just, I think, I think that just speaks. Maybe it's the pessimist inside of me that's just like, don't get your hopes too high. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just that small part of me. I want Dragon Age to just hit so hard. I want Mass Effect to hit so hard. But there's that part of me just kind of deep inside, like I'm rooting for them, but I'm like, but like they kind of, at least from the Mass Effect side of things and from the Anthem side of things, screwed up pretty hard twice.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. I'm right there with you. I think that's sort of where the realist and the pessimist in me comes out and says, you kind of fucked me. It's like getting back with like an ex-girlfriend. You're like, yeah, but is it going to be better this time? Or because if it's not better, it's going to be a lot worse. And then I'm fucking done, bitch. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that. Yeah.
Well, I think it speaks also to the importance that Dragon Age in particular is going to play for EA and BioWare, right? Because, for all intents and purposes, it definitely appears like we're going to get Dragon Age way before we get the newest Mass Effect, right? And Dragon Age 4 is really going to be a showcase of, hey, we're still the BioWare that you remember. Right, like that's kind of like their coming out moment to prove that they still have it, they still got it, right? Which I think definitely speaks of high, importance to them, right? I don't know. Hopefully it comes out and it is just a banger. It just hits all the marks correctly. Graphically, it's beautiful. Gameplay wise, it's incredibly fun and addictive to play. And narratively wise, it just draws you in and just immerses you in to that fantasy world. Hopefully, that is precisely what we get. But there's still that part of me, just a little part. Man,
yeah.
It's like a love-hate relationship. Sometimes you feel like you just love BioWare more than anything, but BioWare just likes abusing you, and it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah, beat me hard, daddy. Yeah,
guys, I think Red Wolf is getting a little loopy. I think he's getting a little sleepy.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to say about David Geider, our hero?
Listen, David.
Speaking out.
David, I appreciate your bravery for coming out and speaking for everyone, but they don't feel like you, and you're just a whiny baby. I'm just kidding. No, I think that it's good to hear the realistic side of behind the scenes development, because not a lot of the times we just see that everyone's happy and we're just doing their job and where everything's great. It's sort of like I mean, that's just marketing, right? Like that's just usually how that goes when it comes to anything. Like you look at like a movie that's coming out, and then here's Jason Momoa being like, "Bro, it's gonna be like the best thing ever, dude. It's so sick." And then it comes out, it's the worst piece of shit ever. And
well,
he
kind of had to say that. In all fairness, they literally paid him to say.
Literally paid him to do that. So then, so then, like 2 years later, he's like, yeah, it wasn't exactly like what I'd like for it to be. It's like, you're not being paid anymore. Be honest. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I would like to see more honesty. Because this is a scummy little world we live in, and the games industry is milking us kids. Yeah, milking a bunch of kids.
I think two things are safe to say. The first thing is that David Geider's NDA must have just lapsed, and he's never going to appear in an interview on the show after what Red just said to him. No.
Yeah, good. Yeah, perfect. I'm sorry, Dave. I was kidding. You should know me by now after watching all my shows. He's a Patreon member. I'm just kidding. I don't have Patreon.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're here at the end of the show. Thank you all so much for watching. This was an absolutely incredible show. Really loved all the topics. But Red, tell us, where can we find you?
You can find me at Red Wolf Renegade. That's it. Red Wolf Renegade on YouTube and on Twitter. The only Red Wolf Renegade on anything ever in the whole world for now. And I do a podcast every single Tuesday live, 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. ish. Sometimes we go to like whenever the hell. Yeah, we talk about all things gaming, and you can find me in the description down below. Give me a subscribe. Just go click on it. Hit the button, and we'll shout you out in chat and all that stuff. That sounds like a weird shout you out in chat. Anyway, that's where you can find me.
Voice.
Oh yeah, you can say So to I can shout you out in chat, and we'll be sure to let you know that you can find all of the merch, all the merch that I've been putting out with me and Rupert. They're going on an absolute craze lately, just trying to put out just for you. Yeah, so you can find me there.
I love that so much, guy. Oh man. Anyway, yeah, you guys can find me at Zimmy Games on Twitter, and then of course you're already here on the YouTube channel. Definitely drop a like if you enjoyed the show. It definitely helps this show get out to even more people. And if you haven't done so already, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button so you never miss out on any future content. We cover Western role-playing games exclusively on this channel, so games like Mass Effect, Skyrim, Cyberpunk, Fable. I can keep going on, but I'm going to stop right there. But pretty much all the Western RPGs we cover on this channel. You guys will be able to catch the very next episode of the RPGwhat Podcast next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm gonna try to pop out another video earlier next week. I'm gonna try to pop out one video and one podcast every single week, just to kind of get more content out there and help the channel grow a little bit more. But yeah, everyone that stay tuned and watch the show. Thank you so much. Super appreciated. I'll see you guys soon. See you guys.
Bye.